Human casually devours apex predator for dinner. Bodhi stood at the edge of the obsidian dais, his boots clicking against the dark stone as he looked down at the sprawling jungle below the Vadan citadel. The air on this planet was heavy, thick with moisture, and the metallic tang of alien pollen that would have choked a lesser species. He adjusted the collar of his formal jacket, his broad shoulders straining against the fabric, while the Vadan court watched him with a mixture of pity and barely concealed hunger. Princess Jadzia stepped forward, her skin a deep, shimmering violet that caught the artificial light of the bioluminescent torches. She moved with the grace of a stalking cat, her eyes fixed on the human who had the audacity to claim he could survive the rite of the red vine. "You understand the Shard-Serpent is not merely a beast," she said. "It is a living weapon that secretes a neurotoxin capable of paralyzing a battalion." Bodhi turned to her, a slow, confident grin spreading across his face. He let his gaze wander over her lithe frame, noting the way her armor hugged the curves of her hips and the strength in her long, powerful legs. "I heard the meat has a nice kick to it," he said, "and I skipped breakfast." Jadzia felt a flicker of something she couldn't name, a heat that started in her chest and radiated outward. No male of her own kind spoke with such flippant disregard for death. She reached out, her fingers brushing the rough skin of his forearm, tracing the scars he had earned in forgotten wars. The contrast between her smooth, cool skin and his burning warmth made her breath hitch. "If you die, the treaty dies with you," she said. "The Vadan do not negotiate with the weak." Bodhi leaned in closer, his scent, something earthy, like rain on hot asphalt, overwhelming her senses. "Then it is a good thing I brought my own seasoning," he said, "because I plan on being very well fed by sunset." The descent into the jungle was a test of endurance that the Vadan expected Bodhi to fail. The humidity was a physical weight, pressing down on the lungs, and the flora was designed to snag and tear at soft flesh. Jadzia followed him, her hand resting on the hilt of her ceremonial blade, waiting for the human to collapse. Instead, she watched in growing fascination as Bodhi moved with a terrifying efficiency. He did not fight the environment. He navigated it with a predatory logic that mirrored the very creatures they were hunting. Every time he paused to check a track or test the wind, Jadzia found herself staring at the play of muscles in his back. The way his sweat-soaked shirt clung to him made her mouth go dry, and she felt a pulsing ache between her thighs that she struggled to suppress. "The wind is shifting," he said. "The serpent is close." "How can you tell?" she asked. "My sensors show nothing within a kilometer." Bodhi tapped his nose, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the canopy above. "I can smell the rot," he said. "It has a kill nearby and it is bloated." Jadzia watched as he drew a simple carbon steel hunting knife. It was a primitive tool compared to her plasma-edged sword, yet in his hands, it looked like a natural extension of his will. The air grew silent, the local wildlife sensing the arrival of the apex. Suddenly, a massive shape erupted from the undergrowth, a Shard-Serpent, 30 feet of armored scales and dripping fangs. It moved with a speed that defied its size, its body a blur of silver and black. "Get back," Jadzia shouted. "The toxin is airborne." Bodhi ignored her. He did not retreat. He stepped into the path of the charging beast. The serpent lashed out, its fangs grazing Bodhi's shoulder, leaving a trail of glowing green ichor on his skin. Jadzia screamed his name, her heart hammering against her ribs, but Bodhi did not fall. He did not even flinch. Instead, he grabbed the creature's neck with his bare hands, his veins bulging as he wrestled the monster to the ground. The Shard-Serpent hissed, its neurotoxin flooding Bodhi's system, a dose that would have stopped a Vadan heart in seconds. "You should be dead," she whispered. "Nobody survives the bite." Bodhi's teeth were bared in a feral snarl as he drove his blade deep into the serpent's soft underbelly. He twisted the knife, and the creature's death throes shook the very ground they stood on. Blood, thick and purple, sprayed across Bodhi's chest, mixing with his own sweat. He stood over the carcass, his chest heaving, the sheer adrenaline of the kill making him look like a god of old earth. "My liver is going to hate me tomorrow," he said. "But man, this is going to be delicious." He looked at Jadzia, his eyes dark with a hunger that had nothing to do with food. The princess felt her knees go weak. She had seen warriors kill, but she had never seen a creature thrive on the very thing meant to destroy it. Bodhi wiped the blood from his face, his gaze locking onto hers with an intensity that felt like a physical touch. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said. "Or is it just the blood?" "You are a monster," she said. "Your biology is an insult to the natural order." "We prefer the term opportunistic predators," he said. "Now help me find some dry wood." The revelation of human toxicity resistance was the twist that the Vadan court had never anticipated. While the royal advisors monitored the hunt via drone, they watched in horror as Bodhi began to butcher the Shard-Serpent. To the Vadan, the beast was a holy terror, its flesh a concentrated poison. To Bodhi, it was a 5-course meal. He built a fire using the resinous wood of the red vine, the smoke rising in thick, sweet plumes. Jadzia sat across from him, her armor discarded, her violet skin glowing in the firelight. She watched as he sliced thin strips of the serpent's flank, the meat sizzling as it hit the makeshift grill. "If you eat that, you will die in agony," she said. "The toxin binds to the nervous system." "Only if your stomach acid isn't strong enough to break it down," he said. "Humans are basically walking chemical processing plants." He held out a piece of the charred meat, the fat dripping onto the embers. "Want a bite?" he asked. "It's high in protein." Jadzia looked at the meat, then at the man who had just conquered her world's greatest fear. She took a step toward him, her movements slow and deliberate. She didn't take the meat. She took his hand, pulling it toward her mouth. Her tongue flicked out, tasting the salt and the faint bitterness of the serpent's blood on his fingers. A jolt of electricity shot through Bodhi, and he pulled her closer, his hand finding the small of her back. "Careful, princess," he said. "I might be poisonous too." "I have never been one for safety," she said. "Show me what else your species can endure." The transition from the hunt to the heart of the jungle was seamless, the environment fatting away as their world narrowed down to the heat between them. Bodhi's hands were rough and calloused, a stark contrast to the silken texture of Jadzia's skin. He pushed her back against the mossy trunk of a giant tree, his body pinning hers with a weight that felt grounding and possessive. Jadzia wrapped her legs around his waist, her claws digging into his shoulders as he kissed her. It was a collision of cultures and biologies, a desperate, frantic exchange of breath and heat. "You are so hot," she whispered. "Your skin is like a furnace." "That's just the metabolism working overtime," he said. "I have a lot of energy to burn." He moved his mouth to the sensitive junction of her neck and shoulder, his tongue tracing the lines of her collarbone. Jadzia arched her back, her breath coming in sharp, ragged gasps. The suggestive nature of their encounter was amplified by the surrounding jungle, the sounds of the night providing a rhythmic backdrop to their movements. Bodhi was not gentle. He was a man who had just survived a lethal encounter, and his touch reflected that raw, unbridled power. He stripped away the remnants of his clothing, revealing a body honed by high-gravity training and the relentless demands of the frontier. "Tell me to stop," he said, "because I don't think I can." "Don't you dare," she said. "I want to feel every bit of the fire that keeps you alive." They came together with a force that felt like a galactic-scale event, a collision of stars in the dark of the Vadan night. Bodhi's strength was a revelation to Jadzia, his ability to sustain his effort far beyond any Vadan male. It was the HFY narrative written in the language of skin and sweat, the human endurance, the sheer stubbornness of a species that refused to be limited by the laws of biology. As they moved together, the political implications of their union began to take shape. This wasn't just a romantic tryst, it was the forging of a new era. The next morning, the Vadan recovery team found them near the remains of the fire. Bodhi was leaning against a rock, finishing the last of the Shard-Serpent jerky he had made, while Jadzia slept soundly, draped in his discarded jacket. The commander of the guard, a grizzled veteran named Malachi, stared at the skeletal remains of the serpent and then at the human who was casually picking his teeth with a splinter of bone. "You ate it," Malachi said. "You actually ate the god of the forest." "It was a little chewy," Bodhi said, "but the flavor was excellent." Jadzia stirred, opening her eyes and looking at her people with a new, commanding light. She stood up, the human jacket falling from her shoulders to reveal the marks of the night before, bruises and scratches that she wore like medals of honor. "The treaty is signed," she said, "and the Shard-Serpents are no longer a threat." "Because we killed them?" Malachi asked. "No," Jadzia said, looking at Bodhi with a possessive smile, "because we are going to start farming them for the human embassy." The news of Bodhi's feat rippled through the sector. The image of a human casually devouring an apex predator became a symbol of humanity's place in the galaxy. They weren't just engineers or diplomats, they were the consumers of obstacles. Galactic historical events are often sparked by such singular moments of brilliance. The Vadan-human alliance became the cornerstone of a new coalition, one built on the terrifying realization that humans could adapt to almost anything, and they would do it with a smile. Back on the diplomatic cruiser, the aerial Bodhi sat in his quarters, looking out at the stars. The door hissed open, and Jadzia stepped in, wearing a human-style silk robe that did little to hide her violet radiance. She walked over to him, resting her hands on his shoulders. "My father is still in shock," she said. "He doesn't understand how you didn't go into cardiac arrest." "It's all in the training," Bodhi said, pulling her onto his lap, "and maybe a little bit of luck." "I don't believe in luck," she said. "I believe in the man who turned a death sentence into a barbecue." She leaned down, her lips brushing his ear, her voice a low, sultry growl. "I'm hungry again," she said, "but I think I want something more substantial than serpent meat tonight." Bodhi laughed, the sound deep and resonant in the small cabin. He stood up, lifting her effortlessly, his eyes reflecting the light of 1,000 suns. "I think I can manage that," he said. "After all, a human, work is never done." The story of the human and the princess became a legend, a tale told to children of both species to explain why you never, ever challenge a human to a dinner party. It was the ultimate validation of the premise, humanity's casual mastery of the impossible. Bodhi and Jadzia didn't just change the map of the galaxy, they redefined what it meant to be a predator. In the quiet moments between the action and the politics, they found a love that was as fierce and enduring as their species' will to survive. The Vadan Citadel stood as a testament to their union, a bridge between two worlds that had once been separated by fear. Bodhi often returned to the jungle, not to hunt, but to walk with Jadzia beneath the canopy of the red vine. They were no longer two different species, they were a singular force, a testament to the fact that when humanity meets the galaxy, it doesn't just survive, it thrives. "Do you think they'll ever get used to us?" Jadzia asked one evening. "The way they look at us in the council chambers is still so full of awe." Bodhi pulled her close, his warmth a constant shield against the cool night air of the Vadan Highlands. "Let them look," he said. "It's good for them to know that there's something out there they can't predict." "And what is that?" she asked. "The human heart," he said. "It's the one thing in the universe that can swallow anything whole and still want more." Jadzia laughed, the sound echoing off the ancient stones of her home. She knew he was right. She had felt that hunger, had seen it in action, and she had welcomed it into her life. As the suns set over Cress, casting long shadows across the landscape, the human and his princess stood together, ready to face whatever the galaxy threw at them next. Because for a human, even the end of the world was just another course in a very long, very delicious meal. The intimate moments they shared were the glue that held the alliance together, a personal history that mirrored the galactic one. Every touch, every whisper, every shared meal was a brick in the foundation of a new empire. Bodhi's ingenuity had saved the treaty, but his passion had secured a future. And as they looked out at the vast expanse of space, they knew that their story was only just beginning. "Ready for the next adventure?" Bodhi asked. "I hear the Zora people have a dessert that is literally made of liquid nitrogen and spite." "Only if I get to be the one to serve it to you," Jadzia said. "I've grown quite fond of watching you eat." "It's a date," he said, "and this time I'll bring the wine." They walked back toward the citadel, their silhouettes merging into one against the backdrop of the rising stars. The Shard-Serpent was gone, but the fire it had ignited would burn for generations, a light in the dark for all those who dared to believe that humanity was anything less than extraordinary.